What up, people? Welcome to the Doing Everything Different podcast. I'm your host, Devin Lars. And today we have a very, very special guest and a really interesting conversation I'm looking forward to. The times right now around mental health, and you know how, if you listen to this podcast, how big I am on mental health and kind of organizing and putting yourself first. And so today's guest, I'm really excited about this conversation. He is the CEO and founder of Forte. And it's a mental wellness, mental wellness being company. And so I'm really excited to kind of jump in and have a conversation. And so welcome to the show, Vineet Rajan.
Hey, Devin, thanks for having me. I'm excited for the conversation we're about to have, brother.
For sure. I'm really glad that you reached out and were able to do this. So let's start by talking about Forte and kind of what you have going on there and what you all are tackling.
Yeah. So Forte is a mental wellness benefit that actually the majority of the company can use and use regularly, right? And so what we want to do is actually serve 100% of the population at a company, because all those people are somebody's father, mother, brother, sister, partner, son, daughter, right? And so they all are valuable to somebody. Whether you're a custodian or a customer success person or a CEO, you matter. And so Forte is really designed to actually meet all of those people in their unique life journey so they can be fully who they are today and who they want to be tomorrow. And we're doing that in a personalized, proactive, confidential way with Fortune 500 companies, privately held companies, VC and PE-backed companies. It doesn't matter if you're in education, healthcare, blockchain, or manufacturing, we can serve you. If you're a person, we can serve you. And so we're really excited about actually breaking down the barriers or stigma around mental health and actually meeting people where they are, the messiness and the hopes and joys of life, and helping them be super intentional about today and about the future ahead.
I love it. So what got you into this?
That's a great question. I grew up in a family. We immigrated to the U.S. from India when I was 5, and my family was a blue collar family. And back in the 90s, mental health, there was a stigma associated with that, and there was no way that my parents were going to leverage any services like that, especially as a blue collar family. It wasn't affordable, nor was it approachable from a stigma perspective. And when I joined the Marines after 9/11, the teams that I got to be a part of, they all performed not because I was a great leader, but because I cared about them as people and they knew it, right? And so as I thought about where our world and our economy is going, I was like, hey, how do I scale this ability to help companies perform at their pinnacle, at the apex of what they're able to do, also while serving each individual employee for the valuable human that they are? And so those combinations of my upbringing combined with my Marine Corps career helped me get into Forte because I want to love and serve people at scale.
Love that. The Marines. My grandfather was a Marine, and he didn't talk too much about it, but he said that
Right.
it was one of the most difficult things that he had to do in his life. So I'm sure did that help you kind of shape your perspective? I mean, I can imagine that just did so much to your perspective and just kind of what you're doing now. How did that journey shape you?
Yeah, I mean, I think first of all, the Marines are, if we're talking about marketing and the ability to tell a story, freaking the Marine Corps has got that kind of corner to a certain degree, right? They have a propaganda machine that I think attracts a certain kind of persona, and that persona is, hey, I want to put it all on the line and go out and serve and do something bigger and better than myself. And I think the Marine Corps, especially as an officer, we have this kind of mantra about officers eating last, which is to say that you always put your people first. We can get real fancy with all the tech that we use and all the capabilities that we have to bear as a country, but fundamentally, ultimately, it's about the individual Marine that's all the way at the front doing all the hard work. And going to get graduate education and going to some good schools, learning about what it means to lead in business, the fundamental leadership principle that I still hold every single day is it's all about your people first. Everything else comes second. And so Forte is really taking that kind of mantra and that philosophy and scaling that in a way that companies can't just do it naturally, right? As we have companies that are larger and larger and more remote and distributed, how can you actually individually serve all the Devins of the world? How can you know that person's story, what matters to them, what's their struggles and their hopes and fears in a personalized, proactive way? You can't, right? But Forte can. And so the Marine Corps experience, that philosophy of people first, permeates through everything that we do here at Forte. It's the way we lead this company here at Forte HQ. It's also about how we partner with our customers, regardless of what they do for a living, so we can actually proactively serve every single human first.
I love that. Now, what was your transition? Did you transition to starting this right out of the military, or like what was that? What
It
was
was
that
messy,
transition?
man. Devin, it was messy, bro. You talking, I've listened to some of your podcasts and like, I think I've heard some of your guests talking about, hey, you have an identity as a consultant, as an athlete, as a, all these guys and gals you've interviewed before. Mine was no different. My identity was being a U.S. Marine. And then coming out of that, I felt like a severe loss of self, right? I lost my identity in some regards. Mm-hmm. And so that started the journey of me realizing that like, actually, I'm valuable not because of how I perform or what I do for a living. I'm valuable because of who I am as a human. And so it was a pretty, kind of circuitous path from leaving the service to joining and creating Forte. I went to a couple of graduate programs, which gave me a little more time to think and reflect, right? And then I did a lot of praying and talking to my wife and talking to some mentors and advisors and seeing where the market was going. So it was several years from when I left the Marines in 2017 to when we started the company in 2021. It was a process, to say the least.
I could imagine, because that's a whole different. I mean, I guess the principles are the same, like what you said. People first, thinking about how to set that up, and building a business is very strategic, right? You have to have a strategic mindset of how you put all these things in place. Have you always been into entrepreneurship? Was that something that was in your family? How did that like even come about?
Well, we're on the Doing Things Differently podcast. So I've been doing things different since high school, really. Like, if you're gonna, I'm going to generalize here from my family. If you're in the Indian culture and in my family, success looked like typically an engineer, a doctor, a lawyer, right? That's what you're supposed to do if you're going to quote unquote make it. And I didn't fit that mold at all, right? I played sports all seasons in high school. And then I joined the Marines a couple of weeks after 9/11. So I broke that mold pretty quickly and pretty hard. And so I wanted to be different by being me. And that's what got us into Forte, is really just like, hey, how do we unlock the unique version of Devin? Because the world needs you in the game, bro, right? Mm-hmm. And you're doing that now. Just your voice, what you're saying, how you're encouraging people to be more of who they're trying to be. And that's what we're trying to do in a different modality, is to do that through our companies and the way we partner with them.
I love it. So how do you guys do that? I think that there's so much stuff around, you have companies, big Fortune 500 companies that are talking about, wellness and, putting people first. But then I was just talking to somebody on my team about it, and they were saying that, the work still got to get done, and so there's still stuff that has to get done. And so I'm curious on your approach of how you're tackling this challenge, because it is something, especially after COVID, that is I feel like a really important thing to attack with the mental health.
Yeah, let's. I mean, all those things are true. So I'm going to go off of what you said last, and we'll go from there. So COVID happened, and we had all the things available to us in terms of social media, right? We're one of the most connected generations in the history of mankind, as far as tech is concerned. And yet mental wellness and mental health got crushed. Why is that? Because we're actually social animals. We're made for human connection. And as much as I love tech, there's nothing like another human who knows me and I know them, right? There just isn't. And so while there's a lot of great companies out there that provide mental health and mental wellness services, I think we're trying to do things differently, to go against, again, with your theme of your podcast, right? We want to actually provide a one-on-one human-to-human connection to every single employee in the United States, if not the world. And the way we want to do that is actually, there's nothing more personal and personable than having another human whose sole job in life is to see how Devin is doing. To like come in the corner with you in the highs of life and in the lows of life, and like speak truth to you. Because a part of what we do, you and I and the rest of us, is we lie to ourselves, or we buy into the lie that society tells us about ourselves. And what we want to do is actually tell you the truth. Sometimes you'll like that truth and sometimes you won't, but we're going to help you see the truth for what it is. And if we do that in a proactive, confidential, personable way, people's lives get changed. And we have the data now after a couple of years of doing it that fundamentally people's lives are getting changed. And to the point that if you do things differently, you'll get different results. Or conversely, if you do the things the same way that every other company's doing, you're going to get similar results. Well, we're getting 70% of the population of the company to use our service regularly. 70, not 2 or 3%, which is the annual average for companies like this, right? That's because we've lasered in on the individual human as the core competency of our service. Now, companies love that because guess what they're getting? Well, their P&L is going to be much more improved, because the highest driver of revenue of any company is that person. the highest cost basis on their P&L statement is that person. And so what that means is the highest leverage any company has is the humans walking around in their company. And what we're doing is 100%, we're trying to scale and reach every single person in their journey of life. So it's all personalized, it's all tailored, it's all one-on-one confidential calls between that employee and their guide they get to hand select as often as they want about whatever they want. And so that actually it's a tailor-made experience for everybody. So that's how we're doing things so differently in this wellness space.
That's cool. Do you watch the show Billions?
You know how many times people have asked me that question? I keep saying, no, I haven't. I feel like I need to answer. I need to actually watch that show.
You have to watch that, because what it reminds me of is there's a character on there, Wendy Rhodes, and she works inside one of the funds, and she's like a kind of a performance coach or of sorts, right? So where people go to her when they're having a meltdown or they need to get, amped up, and she really is able to help guide them and structure all of the stuff. When you're saying this, it kind of feels like, a Wendy Rhodes in your pocket. The show, that's one of my favorite shows. I think you'll like it.
I'll do you one better. I'll watch it. I'll do you one better though, right? So Wendy Rhodes, having not seen the show, I'm going to speak a little out of turn here.
Yeah.
A performance coach, right? So, but think about this. Think about having a counselor, a confidant, and a coach in your pocket. Right? Because coaches are going to help you perform better. That's for your future self. A counselor is going to help you think about your past and help you recover and heal from some challenging experiences we might have all experienced. That's your past self. A confidant is going to help you talk about, Devin, what's happening today, brother? What's happening in your life right now? That's your present self. You said guide. That's what we call our people, guides. And what we're trying to do is combine a counselor, a confidant, and a coach. So you don't have to pick and choose in the moment what you need. Actually, you probably need all three at one time. And so what we're trying to do is give one of those guides in your pocket that you can leverage, that knows you so well, because every conversation you're having with that person, it's the same person, by the way, is additive. And so that person is running with you in your race of life just to help you be you. That's what we're trying to do.
Really cool. What are the guides' background? Are they like licensed counselors, therapists? What is their?
Yeah. So one of the things that we have found in one of our core thesis is that actually we're social animals, and actually a lot of people, if we unlock the love that people have for each other, it's a pretty powerful thing. So we have counselors and therapists and coaches, health and wellness coaches, executive coaches. We have performance coaches. We have Google employees. We have social workers and pastoral care. Here's the thing. It doesn't matter. We don't really care so much about your background. We do care about your level of empathy and heart for people. And we get applications every week now from all over the country to be a guide. And if they get through the screener, we put them through our proprietary methodology that over several weeks, you get trained to be a guide. You get trained what it looks like to journey along somebody with a high level of empathy and self-care, what it looks like to suspend judgment, what it looks like to create a safe space and a place, what it looks like to ask open-ended questions, because we believe the wisdom actually resides in Devin. It's not me to give Devin the answers, right? And so we train all those people with a background that is about one-on-one care and one-on-one questioning and confidentiality. We train them what it means to be a guide on our platform. And then if they pass the evaluation and the exams, and they get certified as a guide and they get put on our platform that way. So our guides actually are very representative of our society, because one of the things we want to build at Forte is a service that meets people where they are and looks and sounds and feels like the people that we're serving, not just being one-sided or one kind of stereotypical person or persona. We don't want that. And so we also provide this service in multiple languages, because what we found is even though all of the employees we serve, most of them speak English natively, their native tongue, though, isn't English. It could be Korean or Spanish or Mandarin or Amharic. And we want to meet you where you are and make it so tailored to you that actually the way you process your thoughts and emotions, probably in your first language, we want to talk to you and converse with you in that language. So there's no translation challenges whatsoever.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Have you had somebody that helped you with that? Like personally, just with your own experience, kind of get past your stuff? Is that kind of did that trigger this, or did you what does that look like?
So I if you meet my wife, you'll know that I need all the help I can get all day, every day, right? Let's be real. I need this more than I'm very selfishly. I did this for several reasons. One is that I want to remind myself again that I'm valuable for who I am as a human, not for what I do. It doesn't matter what the title is, Marine, CEO, it doesn't matter. What matters is that I'm valuable for me, right? The other thing I realized that I've had people speak into my life like this, people who know me for me, with all my mess, with all, not the way I'm presenting to you, but the way that I am when things are bad, when things are hard, when things are a struggle, right? And there's a state, they've created this safe space for me, especially as a man. It's really difficult to find that. And to be able to have another man or a couple of men who I can confide in, I can really be transparent with, man, that has unlocked me in ways that I just can't explain. And I'm really blessed to have those people in my life. And some of them are my peers as far as age, different vocations. A lot of them are, in their 60s and 70s and have taken a liking to me and have walked with me and be like, Vineet, we're going to help you out, right? And they're going to speak life into me. And so I've been really fortunate to have that. And the thing is that I want to do is have that at scale for people who grew up, who were born in the wrong zip code, who aren't going to get that, who aren't going to get that, right? So how do we get that going? So the person who's working a job, I used to work at Jiffy Lube a long time ago. I was a grease monkey. And I was like, the guys and gals who were at Jiffy Lube, none of those guys were going to have, they're very small chances they're going to have anybody like that in their life. And how do we replicate that?
That's very, very, very true. Looking back at how, the whole reason that I've gotten to where I am today is because I've had some incredible mentors. My grandfather was an incredible person that taught me about, just the way life works and wisdom and stuff like that. And my mentor, I met him when I was 23. He's in his 60s, right? And he had experience running businesses and just really took me under his wing and showed me what it is to be a man of integrity, what it is to go through these different challenges. So anytime I was building my business, I had somebody to talk to that has went through that. And he was able to help me get it out, right? I had to, we always call it vomiting, right? You vomit, get it out. Like, oh man, this is all messed up. This. He's like, and then after he lets me do that. And then after he's like, okay, you done? All right, get back to work. And I needed that. And I needed that, just older male perspective of navigating not only business, but how do you show up as a man? How do you show up for your family? How do you show 100%. Up with your relationship and stuff like that? And so I firsthand know how powerful that is. And I always feel extremely blessed to be able to, again, we moved into an office right next to his office, and it just happened to be that way. And so I think that was another thing that interests me and why I wanted to speak with you, is because I know how much that changed my life, and having somebody that can do that. And it was by the luck of the draw. So if you have something that is creating this space to be able to do that, I love the mission and what you all are doing.
Yeah. Luck's not a plan, right? You got to have, if you're a company and you have 100 people or 200 people, are you hoping that they all get lucky and they turn out to be like Devin? That's not a strategy, right? What kind of strategy is that? Right? So hey, companies have a lot of plans for their top 5% of their population, right? They have executive coaching and all that. That's great. And we serve C-suite all day, every day, because everybody gets the same core benefit. It doesn't matter, again, if your title is a CEO or custodian, it's the same service. We don't differentiate between all of those people. But there often is not a plan that actually talks about the 95% of the population that'll never see that kind of benefit for in their life. And what we want to do is hey, we can actually execute on a plan that we know works, that we're not hoping for luck to show up. We're actually going to put people in your people's lives that are actually going to care about them for who they are. Because Devin, what you said is, hey, I bumped into this guy next door and he took an interest in my life. Now, he wasn't trying to get something from you. There was no this, then that return. There wasn't this guy's in your social structure that you have to hide things from him that we all have a tendency to do. And we need more of that in our life. There is a global, or at least, actually a global loneliness epidemic going on. People are lonely. And the problem is, when we're lonely and we're isolated, we start to believe the lies that we tell ourselves. Most of the work we got to do at Forte is help you debunk the lies that we tell ourselves. That's a lot of work, but I'm going to be in business for a long time, because that's not going to get done anytime soon.
For real. How do you, so this is interesting, right? Because totally agree with that, right? I've been doing therapy for two years that has completely changed my life. And it is
Totally.
all about, it's all here. You're battling yourself. And I think people don't understand how much power they actually have when they get out of these stories and unravel that stuff. Have you found it, people are receptive to the idea? I know you said the 70% stat. Like, how does that work? Because some people are just like, oh, I don't need this because I'm not crazy, nothing is wrong with me, right? There's that stigma
Totally.
against therapy,
Yep.
which I like that you call it a guide. So it's not so much, you kind of break down the stigma and make it less intimidating. But how
Yep.
have you seen people kind of adapt to the service?
Here's what I know, right? First of all, I think therapy is a phenomenal resource that people should leverage in the right seasons of their life, right? Not everyone should talk to a therapist all the time. And we know that there is not enough therapists around in the United States to service the demand for the therapist. So the thing that I would say is we're not a clinical interventional source. Most companies have a therapy option for their employees that they can and should use in the right seasons. Mm-hmm. The challenge is, unfortunately, that people think that something's got to be so bad that they needed to go talk to a therapist, right? So they wait until things are so jacked up. Mm-hmm. I'm generalizing here, right? That by the time they get to a therapist and they wait 60 days or 90 days, however long it gets to talk to them, they're in a pretty bad state. Now, what's happened since then? The employer's been paying it presenteeism costs and loss of productivity and all these other things, besides that the employee, the human, is struggling for 3, 6, 8, 9, 2 years, however long it takes for them to recognize they need to talk to a therapist. Well, we said, hey, look, that's an important feature of our life and benefit that employers provide. But what about the people that are like, hey, you know what? My life is going okay. Like, should they not talk to somebody? Because the answer is they should. Every one of us should be talking to somebody. And the difference is that you're not talking to a guide for a clinical intervention. You're talking to a guide because you're a human. You have thoughts and emotions and feelings, what we call the soul. And that soul is only kind of going to come more alive if you connect with another soul who knows you for who you are. And so what we're saying is that's part of the human condition. And so here's what I know. When we work with customers, our customers are like, hey, we have an EAP, an employee assistance program. We get 1% usage, which is the national average. We do have therapy. And often what my customers say is like, but nobody really uses it. I said, okay, well, let's roll this out together and let's position this thing for what it is, which is all of us are valuable humans and all of us should be processing the things that matter to us, whether it's our dating life, whether it's, I didn't catch my football during a game last night, whether I'm getting promoted or I want to start a side hustle, whatever it is, all those things that they matter to us. And if we process it, we're more clear-minded when we show up to work. And what we found is actually when you're positioned like that, when it's super easy to select your guide who will talk to you in your native language, when you can book 15, 30, 45, or 60-minute calls, all of those things from the mobile app that you never have to call somebody. Actually, our guide calls you. It's super easy. It's super approachable. It's super accessible. And all of a sudden, the majority of your company is doing it. So you don't feel like you're the only one talking to a guide. Actually, you're like everybody else talking to a guide. So it changes the paradigm on how we think about mental wellness. We're not trying to use an old playbook for today's problem. We're trying to come up with a new solution for an old problem.
Love it. What has it been like building the company for your experience?
And this is the most fun, scary, exciting thing that I've done in a long time. When you start a company, there's all this like opportunity and there's hope and like, I'm excited, let's do this. And then you start getting people on the team that you're like, wow, they actually believe in this thing, that they're crazy enough to leave their good job, their regular job, a stable job, and do this with you. And then you get investors who are like, hey, I believe in this thing. I want to come in this with you. And I've got some of the most amazing investors I could ever dream of. And then you land your first customer. And then you're like excited and scared because you're like, oh my gosh, I get to like now steward people's lives in a way that I didn't know that I was going to get that opportunity that quickly. Those are all great things and positive things. Gosh, it is so hard to build a company, Devin. Most days you are just like, I got to keep the faith and know that this hard work that we are all collectively doing is going to change people's lives at scale. That's what motivates everybody at Forte. Somebody told me a couple of days ago, like, hey, you're going to be a millionaire. I said, I actually want to be a billionaire And I'm going to caveat, I want to be a billionaire in that I get to change 1 billion people's lives through our service. We serve 1 million or 10 million people, and those people are somebody's father, mother, brother, sister, neighbor, friend, and those people are turned on for the fullness of life, and then they change another couple million, and we're becoming billionaires now, right? So it is super hard work. It is messy. It is not linear. There are every day I go home and wonder, did I make a difference? And because I'm exhausted by the end of the day, and yet I would never change this for the world. Like I'm so grateful to be on this journey at this current season of my life.
It's really cool. Yeah. Building a business is not a game. So you had investors, you brought investors in to help. How did you find those investors? Because I'm curious of just like, different people go to, meet VCs or you get funding or it's through family or something like that. Curious of just what your experience was like raising capital.
Yeah. I mean, raising capital in 2024 or 2023 was a little different than raising capital in 2021, right? Yeah. So, everybody knows who's in this game knows that like the market is fundamentally different. In 2021, I think it was obviously a bit easier. I think in some ways those investors found me and found my co-founder, William. And I think that the benefit that we both have is we're a bit older than the average, what people think about the typical entrepreneur. I had a whole career in the Marines. William had a whole career in private equity. And so there was a reputation that preceded us in the marketplace. And I think back then, at least, it was sufficient enough that two people who had a reputation or a history of doing hard things well, we're going to try something new hard together. Investors got word of that and actually came behind us pretty quickly. I think in 2023, 2024, 2025, it's going to take a lot more, right? Now everyone's talking about profitability and traction and valuations have compressed and all those other things. And what I would suggest to anyone who's desirous of being an entrepreneur is really just be prepared to do some hard work every single day and talk to as many potential customers and prospects as fast as you possibly can and learn like crazy. Because the more you do that, the more valuable your organization will be, first of all, because you can serve customers in a real tangible way. And secondly, you'll have more traction than most entrepreneurs because a lot of people talk about talking about customers, but very few people actually do.
Yeah. That's good insight. So I want to look ahead a little bit. How do you see AI playing into all of this? Because I think what was interesting is I was thinking about yesterday, I saw something a couple weeks ago or a couple months ago where they're creating these AI chatbots of duplicating these celebrities and where you can have conversations with them. So you start looking at the future of the epidemic of loneliness, right? Like what you said. Now with all these AI features and all this stuff where you can have an AI therapist or an AI counselor or AI friend in your pocket, and now you're communicating and being able to vent all that you want to all of this stuff. And then it's pulling some information and understanding what you are to be able to give feedback.
Yeah.
I think that is going to be such a huge thing that happens. I don't know if it's going to be positive or negative or what it is, but I just see it coming down the pipeline of like, oh, if I had somebody to talk to, because a lot of people don't have anybody to talk to. Are you guys thinking about that as you start to kind of scale the business and kind of thinking about, okay, where's this balance between AI, between the human connection, and like what is your take on that? Very interesting.
What a good question. First of all, Devin, that's a great question. I want to say for the record, I think artificial intelligence is a phenomenal tool that we're all going to be able to leverage for all of us to be able to do more of the higher end stuff that we all want to do, right? I think it's going to be so critical for every business to integrate artificial intelligence into their processes. Like, I think that's a real thing. Now, your question directly about like, hey, what about these AI chatbots? And we have AI on our phone and we can just, like you said, vent to this thing and it'll pull some data and give it back to you. So here's my question. Devin, I don't, forgive me, but do you have children?
Yes, I have a daughter that's 4.
Okay. So your daughter's born. Okay. You have a second daughter now. Let's just say a daughter's born. Are you going to call the AI chatbot to talk about that?
I probably wouldn't, but I could see people.
But why not? But why not?
Because I have people in my life that I can call and talk to.
Yeah. So I'm skeptical that an AI chatbot is going to emotionally connect with Devin or Vineet or anybody else in the same way that another human could. I'm skeptical of that. That may not be the popular opinion, but the reality is when things are really high or things are really low, I don't want my employer to tell me to go talk to a chatbot, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm not a machine, man, right? And as soon as you start treating me like one, I bristle. Because the human condition is like, I'm an N of one, and so are you. There will never be another Devin Lars in the history of mankind, ever. Not past, not present, not future. And for me to tell Devin Lars to go talk to a chatbot makes me think that Devin's not going to be quite pumped about that idea. Now, is there an opportunity for us to use chatbots to be able to ameliorate maybe a long wait time for someone you want to talk to? Sure. Are there ways to use chatbots to help highlight some resources that are available? Sure. But is a chatbot going to be the same quality of another human who knows you and all the context and the richness of who you are? Unlikely, right? It isn't going to be able to, like, I don't even have to have AI in my pocket to know that actually if I got in a relationship with you, hey, your voice changed this way, or I heard this, and that I know that in my back of my mind, you really care about that. That's something that I think is uniquely to a human-to-human connection. And now these might be famous last words, but I would much rather be in the thickness of life with the beauty and the joy and the sorrow, and be on that journey with other humans.
Yeah.
And that's what we're building. We're building a human-to-human platform.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think what is interesting and unique of how I see the world is that's our perspective, right? And so you have Gen Z that's coming up, or even, my daughter, 4 years old. It's going to be a whole different normal thing. That is going to be normal, right? Cell phones and technology and all that stuff weren't normal. And so I see, I don't know, I just been playing around with ChatGPT, and I just see how it's affected our business, our agency by far, 100%. It's impacted, and it's
Totally.
made me a lot less valuable, right? My strategy is a lot less valuable now when you can go and just type in something and get a really good strategy and kind of execution with that. And so I'm like looking ahead at our business of like, oh, this is going to change things. And I was just seeing how people are interacting with stuff and the loneliness and thinking about generations to come, and how that's just going to impact the world. You got the whole VR stuff now with the Apple Vision Pro. Like, it's just, now you can't see people's eyes. And I know it's going to evolve, right? You'll be able to see people's eyes and all that stuff. But like right now, we're just getting so further apart. And like, how do we build that connection? And I'm not saying that if I could control it, I would say, no, we don't do that. We keep this human connection. But I know that like I ain't controlling nothing. And so it's like looking ahead at stuff, and it really makes me nervous of having a 4-year-old daughter, of like, what is the world going to be like that she grows up in?
Well, that's it. So we can't control the world, right? And that is not to say that AI isn't going to, AI chatbots exist now. You just Google it for a few minutes and you read the Wall Street Journal article on AI chatbots and how people responded to that article. That tells you at least a sentiment today isn't what you're suggesting at the moment. But to your point, the future generation who didn't grow up the way maybe we did, might look at it differently. Then you cite some people like Jonathan Haidt, that talks about the role of technology and the mental health crisis for adolescents right now, what it's like. And so the question that we have to ask ourselves as a humanity and society is like, to what end?
Yeah, for sure.
Right?
For sure.
Like, it might be more efficient. It's more efficient to use AI chatbot. Like, it's better for my company to just integrate artificial intelligence and chatbot and everything because it just costs pennies on the dollar. But is that what's doing right by the people we have the privilege of stewarding? At the current moment, the answer is no, at least in our opinion.
Yeah. No, for sure. And I agree right now. I agree with you 100%. As you see these things get just more advanced, it's kind of crazy. It's like alien technology. When you use ChatGPT, it's like you're talking to a real person.
I use ChatGPT almost every day. It's awesome. I use that for process improvement and all those other things. And I think one of the things that you hit on is like, man, there's so much of the stuff that AI can do and probably should be doing for us to make our jobs and lives easier, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you look at like the spectrum of wisdom, data, information, knowledge, and wisdom, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think AI can eat up most of the data, information, maybe even knowledge, but wisdom is a place that I think is still hard to get after with AI. That's a very technical conversation we're about to have, but like, I think we talked about your grandfather,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
That dude was walking around with some wisdom in his soul.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to replicate that.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're going to listen to your grandfather in a way that nothing that your chat GPT is going to tell you.
100%.
Right? Like if my father came and told me something, I'm going to listen to him 100 times more powerfully than I am than what chat GPT is going to suggest. And chat GPT might be right, but it's my father,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or it's that mentor who invested in you who's got some intuition that you and I both don't have. And like maybe chat GPT doesn't either. So it's not even just a practicality of like, is it more efficient? I think that's a conversation we're having a lot about. Is it the wise thing to do for our society? That's a different conversation.
For sure. No, I agree 1,000%. I don't. Yeah, it's scary. I mean, the technology, we're entering into this like weird episode of Black Mirror. And you got these goggles. I mean, it's just technology is interesting, and I think the more I don't know with the Vision Pro stuff and this AR, it's like disturbing because it's like, okay, we're already glued to our phone like this, right? And so,
Yep.
and you can feel that disconnect when you're with somebody and they're on their phone and they're not there present with you. You can feel that. So then when you put goggles on it, you can't even see the people's eyes. They're just there. It just creates this like dystopian world of
Totally.
just really disconnect. And so that's why I think stuff like what you're building is going to be just more important as we start going on, because the disconnect is just, it kind of started in 2020 with masks. When you couldn't see somebody smile, and you couldn't see their face, it was like this, like you couldn't get this human, like what you're saying about the human connection. You couldn't have this human connection with somebody because it was half of your face is blocked, so you could only see the eyes. So you didn't know how people were responding. So I remember it was like weird to have conversations with people with masks on because I couldn't read their facial expressions, and like what you said, having that intuition of stuff. And so let me ask you this, is your platform text, call, Zoom? Is it like all of these things and the people get to choose?
It's actually call, right?
Call,
what we found in the data is that one, people hear better and listen more when it's an audio call than an actual video call. Then they're worried about what they look like and the things in the background and also, and they get distracted. An audio call, we found that actually that is the best way for actually wisdom and truth to be exchanged, right? Mm-hmm. So that's the primary means in which we engage with our employees or our users. There's a chat ability between the employee and their guide, but that's mostly to keep each other updated on things that they're talking about. It is not the primary means of communication. And so we always optimize the experience so that actually a real human-to-human connection can take place. And you said something like, hey, what we're talking about is like, what does it fundamentally mean to be a human? COVID was a great experiment for us in that, again, as I suggested, we had all the technology in the world. We had Instagram and TikTok and, whatever, all the things. And then loneliness was spiking through the damn roof. And what does that tell us? Well, what we were really deeply desirous of is actually you and I to have like a coffee together or a Coke or whatever, and like just be normal humans, right? Yeah. Like there's something about that you can't satisfy. And so like you have a daughter, I have a daughter, I have a son. Nothing is going to be the same, no matter how good AR, VR technology is in me holding my daughter's hand when we go for a walk. Yeah. Zero chance you're going to be able to fool me that's when, and furthermore, I don't want to be fooled. I want the real thing. I don't want the fake thing. Right. I want the real thing. Right. And so part of what Forte is trying to do is actually speak truth about like, hey, we're valuable because we're humans. And so what can AI and technology do? Well, it can take a lot of the superfluous stuff, the things that we don't want to do, the things that aren't great, that are repetitive and process oriented. We should and can use those things. But that doesn't change the fact that there's something magical happens when Devin and Vineet get into a room and we talk about something for real.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you can't. Yeah, I agree with you. You can't. that's something that you can't replicate. No, it's definitely different. I mean, even just like my team and I have been remote doing Zoom and everything like that, and I was able to meet up with a couple people, and it was just so different when you're there in their presence, like body language, and like you could read stuff, and then like little side conversations that you just can't get on Zoom, and that in person and that connection with
Yep.
people is just it's gonna be so important as we start to go into this more disconnected world. And so I really respect what you're doing. I respect what you're building. I'm excited to kind of see it develop and grow. And I'm curious. So what's next? What's on the agenda for this year, next 2 years? Like what do you see the biggest thing that you're trying to tackle?
I think there's a lot of talk about employers wanting to take care of their people. I'm excited for 2024 and 2025 for employers to actually deliver that at scale meaningfully, right? And what I mean by that is there's a lot of conversations with employers, and then they say, oh, I have this EAP, which is typically 1 to 2% engagement. So you're like, hey, you're satisfied 1 to 2% of your population using a thing. That's what you mean by taking care of your people. And so we're having a lot more direct conversations with employers, because here's why I care about this, Devin, is like, hey, I fought in 2 wars. War is a terrible thing. There's no winners there. And things like war, things like cancer, things that are struggles that humanity experiences are only going to be traditionally solved by organizations. And organizations are fundamentally built of people. And so I want to help organizations perform at the apex or their climax of what they're designed to do, so that we can solve real problems that all of us have: poverty, cancer, all of those things. But to do that, I actually got to serve each individual person, because in each of us resides this magical wisdom that I spoke about. And we need more of that into the world. And so I'm having some pretty direct conversations with employers and anybody who's willing to listen to us and say, give us a chance. We will deliver unparalleled value for you. It'll show up on your P&L. Your employees will be a whole lot better, not only as workers, but as fathers, mothers, brothers, and sisters, because our country and our world kind of needs more people who are empathetic to one another, especially for those who don't sound, look, feel, worship, love like us. And so that's what we're trying to do. And that's what I'm excited to try to bring to forefront in 2024.
Love it, man. I really respect that. Hopefully this, I feel like we talked a lot on this episode, and I feel like there's a lot of gems, and I really respect what you all are building. And I think, we need more stuff like this. We need more of these conversations about, mental health and awareness, and to be able, especially as men, like you said, to be able to ask for help or be able to lean on people, right? Like that doesn't make you weak to asking for help, and I think there's this stigma. You have to be tough all the time. You can't be in your feelings. And it's like, no, like, I don't care who you are. I always use this as an example. You got Mike Tyson, the baddest man on the planet, talking about all of his emotions, and like, he's just evolved so much as a person.
Totally.
And so no matter how bad you are, doesn't mean that you don't feel and go through these things. You're just better at hiding it and masking it.
Right.
And that's why there's so much of depression rates and substance abuse and suicide rates and all this stuff. And I just think that it's very important to have these conversations and to create communities that people can, be able to grow and to lean on for help.
Totally. There's nothing more courageous. Look, I was a 2-time combat tour Marine, right? There's nothing more courageous, in my opinion, than you saying to somebody else, like, hey, I want to invite you into this vulnerable space.
Yeah.
And let's do this together, man. And I bet you if you do that, you're going to run harder, you're going to hit faster, you're going to shoot better, you're going to draw better, you're going to rap better. Whatever it is your thing is, you're going to be a whole lot better if you have the courage to invite somebody into that space. Now, the question is, will you take that first step of faith and ask somebody, right? And that's a different talk track than all the therapy platforms and all the, and I'm not trying to belittle that. I'm just saying this is not your grandfather's mental therapy kind of solution that we all grew up with. This is about you being only you, what you can be. And we want to, you have to invite us, but if you invite us in, we will help you be who you can be for the benefit of our society. And so we're really excited about doing that. I really appreciate having this conversation. I did not expect that we're going to be on this thing talking about AI and chatbots and the future of humanity and society. So I appreciate your philosophical bent to all this conversation, brother. It was really enjoyable.
Yeah, same. No, that's why I want this podcast to be like really just organic and let the conversation flow. And like I said, I'm for real. I really respect what you're doing and what you're
Thank you.
bringing in and putting to the world. And I think that we'll probably be having an episode 2 later on down the road
Good.
as we
I'm
start
looking forward
building
to
this
it.
stuff out. And so, yeah, I really appreciate it. Thank you for your time. And we'll link the contact and all the stuff in the show notes. But where can people find you if they want to get set up?
Just look us up at getforte.com.
Awesome. I love it. Well, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
I hope you have an amazing year. And I'm
We'll talk soon. All right, bro. Thank you.
Bye.